Hi, this is Pete Kears, and today's webinar is sponsored by OnApproach. I'll be your moderator today. I'm the Senior Engagement Manager for OnApproach. OnApproach is a QSO focused on data analytics. Since launching our M360 Enterprise Data Warehouse, we've made it our goal to provide credit unions with the means to transform their data into action that benefits members. One of our fundamental strategies is to partner with excellent companies that leverage data to serve their credit union clients. This webinar is a part of a series dedicated to showcasing best-of-breed products and services of OnApproach partners. Our topic today is Financial Transformation and Automation at Credit Unions, with a subtitle, How Performance Management and a Data Warehouse Can Help You Navigate Through Mergers and Acquisitions and Core System Renovations. Our presenter today is Graham Goble, CEO and founder of BankBI Limited. BankBI is software as a service company based in the UK, specializing in performance management solutions for banks, credit unions, and the microfinance industry. BankBI provides a cloud-based architecture for implementing a financial and banking performance management solution that delivers pre-built dashboards and reports to mobile devices and the desktop. And then via the cloud model, more than 60 financial institutions now rely on BankBI in over 40 countries. Prior to founding BankBI, Graham was at a leading core banking vendor as product director responsible for business intelligence. Graham also has over 15 years experience of working as a CIO in international banks based in London, UK. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please feel free to ask questions via the chat or the questions function during the session, and I will read these during the Q&A session. So Graham, with that, I'll turn the presentation over to you.
Thanks, Pete, and hello, everybody. This is Graham Goble. Today's presentation, we're going to have a little bit of a walk through what it is to address the question of mergers and acquisitions, and especially core banking renovations. And to do that, I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction to BankBI. I'm also going to talk a little bit about platforms and APIs, application program interfaces. Sounds very technical, but if you obviously in the industry, the whole industry is abuzz with platformications, APIs, and we're really going to take a look at this at a fairly high level and say, does this matter? What sort of strategy should we have around this area? How are these technologies or these enablers allowing companies like BankBI and OnApproach to address some of these issues that we have around business intelligence? And then we're going to take some of this learning, if you like, and apply it to two case studies. I'm going to look at one, which is a BankBI project that's currently running with a credit union that is in the process of merging, and another, which is a credit union which, together with OnApproach and BankBI, is in the process of moving its core banking system, and so is utilizing these tools to help manage and de-risk that process. And then hopefully we'll end up with a little bit of a summary at the end and leave enough time, if I've got my timing right, to address any questions and answers as we go. So a little bit of an introduction to BankBI and who we are. If you look on the OnApproach, if you're familiar with OnApproach's website, you'll see us there. We are a strategic partner of OnApproach, and we work predominantly through relationships with companies that can allow us to leverage data in the industry. So as Pete said, we work in the banking industry, the microfinance, and the credit union space, and the way we do that is to look for ways and opportunities to leverage the data that might already be residing in applications like a data warehouse. So the collaboration and partnership with OnApproach is very significant for us, as it gives us that ability to address the market through the connectivity that OnApproach has with their M360 data warehouse. So what does BankBI provide? We provide out-of-the-box solutions around performance management. So that means we have pre-built dashboards and reports available on any device, phone, tablet, or desktop. So this you can think of as like an app you can get from a typical app store, which you can run within a browser on any device. You contract for the application via an annual subscription. And as I said, we have pre-built integration to systems like M360. It's a cloud-only architecture deployed in Microsoft Azure. In the US market, it's deployed in Azure South Central, which is down in Texas. And this means that we're able to go to market with a solution that's pre-built, ready to run in the cloud, where there's no additional hardware or software that the credit union needs to employ to enable our application. We also take no member personal data into our cloud model either. So we leave some of those security issues outside of the model. We fully integrate with Microsoft Office and Excel. And we also have a power user capability to extend the analytics for a power user experience. So hopefully you're getting a feel for the type of application that we are. We are a new company, 4 years old. We built this specifically for the cloud, hopefully leveraging some of the technologies that I'm going to take you through today. In the 4 years we've been in existence, we now have more than 60 financial services companies, banks, credit unions, and microfinance organizations contracted to use BankBI in over 40 countries. So this is really testament to the power of the technology we're using, and in particular the cloud infrastructure that we base this on. If you're interested to read a little bit more about us, then feel free to visit us on bankbi.com and take a look at some of those stories. Now then, I said we need to look at platforms and in particular APIs and really ask the question, what's going on in the industry? Does this really matter? And I appreciate this is not necessarily a technical audience here, so I'm not going to get too technical on this, but technology is having a real fundamental input into some of the transformation, some of the enablement that's going on in the industry today. And we really need to get to the bottom of this and really understand this to build our strategies, to work out how we can use some of this technology and to see how we can use some of the agility and speed, if you like, to implement some of these systems. I took a look at a particular report. This is a Capgemini report, the retail banking report for 2017. What I thought was interesting was most of the chapters talk about some form of technology, disruption in technology, and in particular, chapter 2, APIs are pivotal to banking's future. Open APIs come to the fore. APIs underpin bank fintech collaboration. APIs expand in purpose and priority. Regulators push, and so on. So APIs are clearly, through platforms, are having a huge impact on our industry. And we are seeing this in many ways, and we're seeing this especially in Europe with payment directives like PSD2, which is coming to the market and forcing the market and asking the market questions around the way that it collaborates, the way that it authenticates, especially in the payments area, and the way that it allows other companies to access banks or credit unions' data as part of that transformation, that part of that platformication, as it's called. And so today we're going to take a look at this and see, what is actually happening here, how can we get our hands around it, and how can we build this into our strategies going forward. So what's happened? Well, the platform has really emerged out of 20 to 30 years of application software development in the industry. When we started off building systems 20, 30 years ago, we built products. We aimed to have the best of breed product. We brought that to the market. As software companies got consolidated into some of the very large financial services technology companies that are around today, so many of those best of breed products ended up within one house. And so there was the idea of then building a solution out of those best of breed products. And so the solution concept came together, giving best of breadth, usually underpinned with software technologies like middleware, like messaging, and even point-to-point interfaces and integration. But the app economy that we're all familiar with and that has come about in the last few years is forcing a rethink of the way that businesses interoperate and collaborate in this app economy. In summary, and really what's happening here is the velocity of change on the front end, on the app side, is far greater than the back end. So we need to disconnect the back end systems and processes from what is happening on the front end. I guess if you think about your own journey through maybe internet banking, mobile banking, you may have had several iterations of those systems in the last few years, but probably your back office system hasn't changed at the same pace. So this disconnect between the volume of applications, the velocity of change in those applications from the back end systems that have to serve them, has resulted in the need for banking to move to a platform approach. to have an API, an application programming interface collaboration to enable it to happen. And this is what we're seeing in the market today when we hear about platformication, the API economy. It's allowing those fast changing, rapidly created applications on the front end to interact with the slightly older, slightly more entrenched back end systems. So what is a platform? It is a plug and play business model that allows multiple participants, producers and consumers, to connect to it, to interact with it, and create and exchange value. And I think it's really significant that it is a business model, because what you see today in the industry is a lot of banks, a lot of software companies trying to work out how to A, build their platforms, and then secondly, how to monetize those platforms. And actually around the API, when you think what all an API is an interface between two programming interfaces, two programs, two applications. It's a question on how do you monetize that? Do you monetize that by providing, let's say, the payment service underneath, or do you monetize that by actually monetizing the API calls themselves or some derivative of that? So there's a lot of opportunity here to explore ways to participate in this app economy and to maybe monetize it in different ways. But the platform needs to be a business model. It needs to be plug and play, and it needs to allow the exchange of value so where 1 + 1 must equal more than 2, so that there is a need for and a drive for that individual platform. Now, recently I was at an event in Dubai, speaking as a panelist at that event, and it was an event sponsored by Finastra. For those not familiar, Finastra is the merger of D&H and Misys. That's the new brand name for the company. And I believe now they're the 3rd largest financial services tech company in the world, and probably sitting behind maybe Fidelity and Fiserv, if I've got that right. And I thought it was interesting that at a user conference, it wasn't a technology conference, it wasn't a CIO conference, but they put this quick tutorial up as a slide to the audience, because we're all talking about APIs, and yet it is a fairly technical subject. But from a business perspective, we need to understand what an API is. Now, I don't intend to go through this in detail, but I think suffice to say, as I've said already, an API is an application program interface. I think that's the takeaway from the left-hand side. From the right-hand side, you often hear about them described as REST APIs, representational state transfer. All we need to take away from here is that there's a disconnect between the state of the front end and the back end. So the front end can ask the back end to do something, the back end can do it, but the front end can carry on with its user interface without waiting for a reply. So very simply, an API is just a way of communicating between programs, usually done through the platform itself. So who's doing this and who's got this? Well, pretty much everybody is. If you look into the industry today, all of the big banks are now launching their developer hubs, as Citibank is. Deutsche Bank in Germany makes its computer code publicly for the first time. In the UK, RBS, other projects, people are bringing platforms where you can go and build your APIs. And really what you're trying to do here is bring a community of developers to the bank, in this case, in most cases, to underpin the services that the bank is offering. And so it's pretty easy to look out there. I've only picked 1 or 2. There's dozens of examples of this now, with all of the banks having open API initiatives to invite application developers to bring their application code, connect it to the bank's systems and processes to generate this market of collaboration. One example that's pretty well used, and I came across this the other day, is taking the Wells Fargo website, and what they did was they broke it down into all of the underlying collaborators and partner applications that actually made up that website. I don't know how true or accurate this is, but I thought it was indicative of just what's going on, that today's services, today's platforms are actually made up of the collaboration of a lot of companies interacting through this API and platform transformation and technology. So who needs to have a platform strategy? Well, I think we all do, basically. The large banks obviously fear disintermediation. They have a high cost base. They need to own and monetize their platforms. That's why we're seeing a lot of the big banks coming out with those platforms, with those APIs, with those API standards. they need to move fast, basically, because they need to bring in the developers, the community of app developers who can meet those consumer demands. But the financial technology companies also want to be players in the space, because you use their core banking systems today and other applications. They want you to use their platforms to buy their apps via their app store to monetize their platforms. And it helps them to maintain and grow their core market share. And so there's a realization in many of these financial services companies that they can no longer own all of the systems that they're going to need to offer within a credit union or a bank. They're realizing that what they need to do is own the platform that brings the producers and consumers together and underpin it with some of their core technology. And this way they can emerge as thrivers in this new economy rather than being survivors or being left behind. But make no mistake about it, this is a huge change for many of these services technology companies. They come from a background where they would have liked to have sold you everything they have in their best of breed suite shop. They would have liked to have created those software suites which had an application for every requirement that you had. But there's a realization now that things are changing too fast and they can't do that. So there is still a dilemma with many of these companies between the product owners who want to protect those products and the platform API app store owners who want to take a more open approach in the market. So when you're interacting with these companies, it's quite interesting sometimes to see how open their app stores, their marketplaces really are. Are they open to all vendors, or are they still protective of their own core application? Because there are a lot of fintechs and startup companies out there that are challenging the banks in this market. They usually have embraced the cloud with software as a service business model, who are already delivering via platforms enabled by APIs. Now, BankBI is not in the mobile banking space. It's in the business intelligence space. It's in performance management space. But nevertheless, we've embraced all of this technology as a foundation of the way we take our business to market. And so I'm going to use BankBI and OnApproach as an example here in the business intelligence space of how we have used this cloud and API technology to become very agile, very swift of foot in terms of implementing systems and meeting and solving problems. Because this technology allows us to become agile, allows us to be fast, to be quick, and to create really quick time to value. And so we can do this through this transformation and use of technology like APIs and platforms. In the credit unions yourself, you're no doubt inundated with companies like ours and others, and much bigger ones that are coming to you with their platforms, with their APIs. And I think the good news is you don't have to select one platform, one set of standards. Platforms can interoperate, can communicate, but I think it's important that you understand the dynamics of platforms, the value of APIs. And if you're looking at projects that you're running today, just question whether you're running those based on platform principles, based on API principles. If you're hard coding and building interfaces point to point, are you really locking in cost? Are you really creating an inability to swiftly change front-end systems that might need to change at a different rate than the back end? And if you start thinking APIs, think platform, think APIs, then you're starting to, I think, make best use of the technology that's coming along in the market today. So that's really looking at platforms and API. That's a little bit of a grounder there. So let's take that concepts there and move that on into the BankBI OnApproach world, in particular to the platform-only business model that we have there. So in our world, in BankBI, we address performance management for credit unions. And in particular, we're looking at what is driving your business. And that is your members that are interacting across your branch network, accessing the products and services that you're offering. And they're doing that through interacting through various channels, and where they have contact with you, it's usually through relationship managers. And so what we need to do is provide the tools and the capability to work out what we need to measure here to ensure that we can provide timely monitoring of all of the right metrics, KPIs, ratios, and things that are going to allow us to understand the performance of our credit union. And if we do all of those things and provide that in a timely way, we're going to be able to provide the tools that let you better manage your business. So that's what BankBI does. It brings together in one application, in one box, solutions for CEO to track performance, look at month-end reporting, create solutions on any device, anywhere. At the CFO level, monitor daily financial reporting, close month-end faster, eliminate reliance on spreadsheets. It really improved the automation of the production of financial and month-end data. At the branch level, track sales, analyze loan and deposit portfolios, look at branch scorecards, loan officer scorecards, analyze that on a day-by-day basis. And the way we do that and deliver that through our cloud architecture is to use the technology that I've just described. We have a platform. We have our own platform surrounded with APIs. That means our platform does not really care what is actually supplying the data underneath. Yes, we obviously authenticate it. Yes, it has to come from trusted sources and all of those things. But we can literally plug and play through the APIs to enable our application to function. So in our world, the platform really sits inside the cloud in Microsoft Azure and is surrounded by some APIs that allow data to be pushed into the application and allow data to be pulled out through APIs into a reporting application. Now, in our case at the moment, that reporting application is our own browser application sitting on a phone, a tablet, or a laptop, desktop, but the connectivity is all through APIs, and that's important, and I'll show you that in a moment. So what are the advantages of this technology? Well, we have a single multi-tenant system, no legacy version. So what does that mean is all of our customers are using exactly the same BankBI system. We don't keep separate versions for separate customers. We maintain it across the whole customer base, which means we all move forward together. We fix bugs when they occur, and if they occur, we fix them once, and we deploy them so everybody gets the benefit of that. Also complementary to that is if we enhance the product, everybody gets those enhancements at the same time. So this means there's no legacy versions, there's no sort of legacy projects to talk about in terms of migrating from one version to another. It's all delivered via a simple annual subscription. So you either like it or you don't like it, and you would subscribe or not subscribe accordingly. And because we've wrapped this in the cloud, we've taken care of all the hardware, the software, the database license. So once you've paid that subscription, you don't have to think about hardware and scaling and backup and recovery and database. We do all of that as part of the annual service. So how does this work in practice? So we just take a very simple example. If we look at the OnApproach system, which is a data warehouse, which contains all of your key credit union data, like general ledger balances, loan, deposits, credit card data, member data. If we just take the GL data, that gets pushed out of an API connection to from the OnApproach system, gets put to an API in the BankBI system, which effectively enables it to be processed and then automatically pushed through into the application. So the interaction between the data warehouse at the bottom into pushing data into BankBI is simply APIs. It's simply files pushed to APIs, which process them, which push them on during the process. So this is a very scalable, fully automated, no manual intervention into this process. So banks are constantly sending us, credit unions, sending us data on a daily basis. It hits our system, it gets queued, it gets processed, it gets regenerated, it refreshes the application. The users get a move forward with their data in a very seamless, highly automated fashion. So why is this important? Well, if we think about APIs at the top of the chain, yes, we support our own browser application, but because we've built it on APIs, we can plug other types of application into those APIs. So one obvious one would be we might want to have voice interaction. Maybe through Amazon Alexa, we want Alexa to talk to us, to tell us financial performance or other data from the BankBI system. But these APIs also allow us to start bringing in an area of augmented intelligence. I haven't used the word artificial intelligence here. Artificial intelligence suggests maybe that the computer is going to do the thinking for us, and I don't think we're at that stage yet. But certainly the concept of a financial robot, a chatbot, might be very easily integrated into BankBI through the use of this technology. So whilst we have not built this from the outset, we are now investing heavily in these other technologies. So in 2018, we'll be bringing out voice interaction, and we'll be bringing out augmented intelligence to sit complementary to the web application, which you can drive yourself. So how might this help us in terms of analyzing performance in the credit union? Here's a dashboard. It's a BankBI dashboard showing us return on assets. It's answering the what question. What has changed between March and February? Our ROA has improved. It's telling me something quite useful. It's charting it down below. It's giving me a lot of information. I can access it on an iPad, a tablet, on my desktop. So I can interact with it in a very nice, friendly way, get a lot of useful information, but it's answering what I would say is the what question. What has happened? What has changed? And there's no doubt we could very easily, and we are, plugging Alexa into this application. Graham, your ROA has increased month on month by 0.13% from 7.76 to 0.89%. So very easily we could think of a scenario where we could maybe be sitting at breakfast and we're asking Alexa, what is my BankBI credit union financial highlights for today? And Alexa is giving me the what has changed, what has happened. Now, answering the why, okay, we've seen what has happened, but why did it change? What were the drivers? Was my ROA affected by the new production of loans I wrote during the month? Was it affected by fee income? Was it affected by lower expenses? How did that improvement come about? Or was it a combination of all of those things, which is probably more likely? Now, today, BankBI can now help answer those questions by letting you drill down and drill through those ROA and other ratio calculations. And what it will allow you to do is break down and find those reasons, the why question. Why did that ROA change? Was it some part of my assets, my loans, which were up or down? Was it my income, my expense, etc.? But obviously, to do that in the application, very nice, looks good, very simple to use. But nevertheless, if I have to go through all of these ratios to find the reasons why, it can be a little bit time consuming. So let's bring in RoboFin. Not probably the name we're going to go to market with, but hopefully you'll illustrate the concept. Now let's supposing overnight, since we loaded the last financial data, RoboFin has done an analysis of all of the legs of the ratios that we want to analyze. So RoboFin knows what are the main drivers behind all of those ratios. So now when we engage RoboFin on the application, just like Alexa, he can tell us what has changed in terms of the monthly change. But now, because RoboFin has the augmented intelligence to walk down all of the legs of all of the financial ratios, interrogate all of the GL accounts, we can now see some of the key reasons why the ratio has changed. Was it my commercial loan that increased? Was it my expenses that were down? And it's likely to be a combination of these things. So here is an illustration of how, using the technology, by using platforms, APIs, we can very rapidly deploy and enhance complementary components within our application suite to complement the browser, the human interactivity, if you like, with voice interaction and with augmented intelligence. So how can we bring all of this into a business intelligence landscape? I've created a sort of fairly simplified technology landscape, focusing really on data warehousing and business intelligence here. At the bottom end, you've got all of your core banking systems. You've got credit card data. You may have loan data coming in from various sources. You may provide advisory services around wealth management, and I'm sure there'll be many other services and products that you offer. And typically around the core banking system, you'll have a series of interfaces, hopefully APIs, that are enabling your digital channels through which your members can interact with you as a credit union. But from a business intelligence perspective, the data warehouse and the value of M360 is that it gives you the opportunity to pull all of this disparate data sets into one single version of the truth, the data warehouse. So this becomes your key business intelligence and analytics foundation. Why is this important? Well, because there will be very many potential uses of this data within the credit union, whether you're looking at asset liability management, looking at creating a CECL model, looking at attrition, retention, rewards for members, maybe vehicle loan reset rate functionality, looking at profitability of members. So we can call these, I think, tactical BI models that need to sit on top of and connect to the data warehouse. So what OnApproach does is it provides a series of APIs through what they call quick connects, which are ways of accessing sound data based on discrete data sets of the data warehouse to solve those connectivity problems. So they give you the loan data, they can give you member data, they can give you member transactional data. So these quick connects allow you to very quickly connect these models into your overall BI landscape and architecture. But sitting across the whole organization, you need to monitor your financial performance, because at the end of the day, all results end up inside the balance sheet and the income statement of the credit union. So at the very highest level, the results are being monitored, and you need to push down through those results into the sales activities that are driving those results. And you can see all of this is coming together through that same platform API technology. So OnApproach provides, through the data warehouse, a single version of the truth. Lots of other partners in the OnApproach ecosystem can provide domain-specific models to solve certain BI problems. And what BankBI specializes in doing is bringing all of that together into the financial management reporting of the credit union. So let's try now and relate all of that to a case study. And as I said, I have two case studies here to discuss. The first is the Credit Union of Texas. So this is a current project that is underway. Credit Union of Texas is a OnApproach data warehousing customer, and they're going through an implementation of or conversion of a new core system. And they came to us with a particular problem, and we'll go through that in a moment. The second case study is a credit union called Tandir. And Tandir, for the second time, is using BankBI as they go through a merger scenario. We did this 2 years ago with them as they merged two credit unions. Now a third credit union has just merged and is going to be from 1st of December is part of the Tandir credit union. So we're going to explore how these credit unions have utilized BankBI to help manage and solve particular problems as they've gone through those M&A and those core banking conversion issues. Credit Union of Texas is based down in Fort Worth, Dallas area, started in 1931. It's in the top 100 credit unions, has more than 137 members, and they're migrating from Ultradata to Scimitar. And this is due to complete later in 2018. So they came to us with a challenge, if you like, as to how to maintain financial reporting capability sort of before, during, and after that conversion. So how could they manage the change from one set of general ledger accounts to the new set of general ledger accounts? How could they manage an evolving chart of account structure during the conversion? They couldn't define today 100% what that chart of account structure is. It's going to, obviously, as you go through the migration and the conversion, it's going to evolve. So they needed a solution that was going to allow them to capture all of their history under the existing chart of account structure, and then B, from a certain point, capture data going forwards and bring that into their management and maintain their management reporting and capability. So the solution to this challenge was really to utilize the M360 data warehouse as they are to store the general ledger history using existing general ledger codes and the new codes from conversion. So this is really important point, that the data warehouse gave them an independent copy of that financial history from the core system. So regardless of the fact that they were changing their core systems. They had their own independent copy and history of that raw general ledger data. What we can do then by plugging into that data through the API connections that we have with OnApproach is that BankBI can help map multiple charts of accounts to manage the change from the old systems to the new systems. And this provides a continuous financial performance analysis during the process. So if I just walk through this a little bit, so what this allows us to do is effectively take today's chart of account structure with today's chart of account numbering system, and we can integrate that into the BankBI product, and we can bring in all of the history, all of the budgets, replicate all of the provide all of the financial reporting for the credit union based on today's state. As the credit union moves forward into migrating, so a new chart of account will then be implemented, and we can correlate the new chart of account to the old chart of account, and so integrate data and balances coming on through the new chart of account structure, so that we can maintain a business as usual reporting capability between the old and the new systems. So this gives finance a lot of comfort. They have their history in the data warehouse. They have the ability to produce all of their management reports and financial reporting using today's chart of account structure. And they have the tools here to manage and map, with the help of BankBI, a new chart of account structure to align it with the old. So as that evolves, as that firms up, as they migrate, and as they start accounting under that new structure, it would be business as usual in terms of reporting through the financial reporting. The alternative to this was try and manage this in Excel. Try and build some conversion of today's management account packs in Excel with those associated macros to accommodate a new chart of account structure going forward. So there's a high degree of risk. There's a high degree of skill required in Excel and macros that really was not really serving the organization to any best purpose. So with the utilization of the tool here, we're able to utilize the tool and its mapping capability to very easily not only map, but keep a documented record, something that's auditable about how that migration has occurred and how the new chart of accounts has appeared within the old system. In Tandir's case, it was a little bit different in the sense that Tandir is the result of a merger between two credit unions, Teachers Credit Union and the Prosperity One Credit Union. And this happened a little over 2 years ago. Tandir is a credit union over $1 billion in asset size, serving more than 30,000 members across 13 branches. And then as of 30th November, a credit union called Member One was also merged with Tandir. So 2.5 years ago, we were taken on by, our product was taken by Tandir, and we assisted during that original merger by taking two sets of source data, one from Teachers Credit Union, one from Prosperity One, both using different core banking systems and GL systems. And we were able to provide a single integrated chart of account view of those two different source systems. So in the run-up to the merger, we were able to build those integrated chart of account structures, integrate those two sets of data, provide consolidated financial reporting from day one of the merger. The core banking merger, of course, happened several months after the legal merger of the two credit unions. And the core banking merger meant that one of the core banking systems was going to consume the data from the other one. And in that case, we were able to literally just pick up the data as it came through, in this case, new branches through that structure. We already had integration to that core banking system. So as we moved from the two separate systems into the one system, it was business as usual. We were able to simply pick up and run the data from the point of core banking system merger automatically. The second merger, Merger One, member one has just happened, and in this case, a similar scenario, member one has been merged, and this data has been integrated into the existing reporting, and then in 3 months' time, the member one data will be consumed into the banking system of the existing Tandir system. So again, it's a temporary measure while we bring in separate source data, and then from the core banking alignment, if you like, from that date forward, all the data comes out of one system. So the key there is being able to manage multiple charts of accounts within the one system, to map those together into a single reporting structure, and then to, as I say, move seamlessly with the organization based on their timetable, taking the data through into the consolidation. So 2 examples here of how data warehousing and performance management can actually help de-risk the process, can help automate the process, can alleviate some of the headaches of managing some of that history. And there is often a tendency to think reporting always comes at the end of a project or a process. And I guess the more I've been in this industry, the more I've realized that successful performance management and reporting needs to be thought about much earlier in these transformation and merger processes. You cannot leave these things until the end and only then start thinking about them. Reporting is not an afterthought. It is really fundamental to enabling you to be successful in these transformation projects. Now, one of the reasons we've been able to be successful in both these situations is because we can alleviate a lot of the integration and setup from the credit unions themselves. So because we are a cloud solution, which is enabled by subscription, we switch on the client almost instantaneously. There's not a big software load process. We don't have to acquire hardware, and we don't have to go through that build process. So we get straight to the nub of the problem, which is building the configuration for the credit union. And we do that as part of a fixed service that we offer to implement BankBI. So our normal implementation methodology is to provide that service to the credit union, to take today's chart of accounts, to load history, to load budget, to fully integrate that in the product. And we do that in a few days. And then we present it back to the client, the credit union, to access the system and to be straight into a sort of UAT and testing scenario. So all of this is possible because of the fact we've built this on a platform using that API technology that I talked about earlier. So we're heading for a summary then. So platform strategy, multiple platforms is okay. That having multiple platforms, no credit union will be able to create a single platform and say that's the only platform I'm going to use, because platform to platform integration is under the hood. It doesn't matter that you have multiple platforms. What's key is that you've built those platforms on the value of APIs and the interoperability and the fast implementation that you can achieve through API technology. Data warehouses. When front is changing fast, when core banking systems are changing, data warehouses can provide a single version of the truth. It provides independence from the core system. It allows you to hold history that you can utilize through APIs in future applications, maybe even applications we can't even think of today. So that having your copy of your data inside a data warehouse as a single version of the truth is really, really important. And a single version of the truth does not just mean a copy of the member record, a copy of the member loan data, et cetera, et cetera. It also means making sense of that data as we roll it up through those BI models, and as we roll it up into the financial statements of the credit union. So having all the member data, member transactions, member loan account balance is all very, very well and good, but we need to be able to map it through to those balance sheet income statements so that we can traverse the single version of the truth from a balance sheet right down to a member analysis of the loan portfolio by member attributes. So that data warehouse needs to be flexible, it needs to be multidimensional, it needs to be time series based, and it needs to provide the version of truth from top to bottom. If we do all of that, financial performance applications like BankBI can provide very agile ways to manage change, to maintain reporting capability. And all of this allows automation to reduce costs and overall reduce risk. So I think I'm just about up on my time, and so I'm going to hand back to the guys at OnApproach and see whether we have any questions in what time we have remaining.
Thanks, Graham. Great presentation. I would then mention to the audience that you can either use the question function or the chat function to submit questions. As you're doing that, I have one of my own here, Graham, is can BankBI interoperate with Microsoft Power BI or any other tools?
Yes, we can. So I mentioned earlier at the start, we have a Power user experience. So part of the output, if you like, of the BankBI process is that we create an enriched product and member analytics file that can be downloaded from BankBI. And the value of that file is that we take the raw data, let's say loan data, out of the data warehouse, and then during its transformation and integration into BankBI, we create a lot more reporting fields based on the data. So simple examples of that may be taking maturity dates on loans and putting them into maturity bands, taking date of birth of members and putting them into age range and other demographic groups, putting maybe credit beacon scores into ranges as well. So there's a lot of value add in terms of the reporting fields we add on top of the data warehouse data, and that can be pulled down in a very simple analytics file from the application, which can be opened straight up in tools like Power BI and then be used as a way of building out some of those models and additional reporting in Power BI. And in fact, you can integrate through single sign-on some of those dashboards back into the user experience in BankBI as well.
Great. So when this is implemented, what is a typical implementation? How long does it take? What are some of the practicalities of that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, straight away being cloud-based as an app ready to go, pre-built, we take off the table anything to do with installing the software, installing database license and hardware. So that's off the table. So we get straight into spinning up a client, setting up the chart of account structures, plugging in with yourselves the data service that connects the M360 data warehouse into BankBI, and we do all of the loading of history, transformation of mapping of the chart of accounts. So typically that's about a 5-day elapsed time exercise, and then we hand over to the client. And typically a credit union would go through maybe 1-2 month ends at most to parallel run the month-end process during their financial month-end process. So with very little effort on the credit union's part, we can have them up and running in elapsed time, in a sort of six-week elapsed time.
Terrific. So if there are any other questions out there, please do use the questions function and let us know if you have any. And then let's see here. I do have a question from the audience. Does it matter what is the GL or core banking system, Ultradata, Scimitar, Prolog, etc.?
No, it doesn't. So again, one of the great things about the agility we bring to here through OnApproach. OnApproach has connectivity to most of the core systems, GL systems, and I know you're always looking to connect to others. So BankBI leverages those data sources in M360. So one of the APIs is to go get GL balances from the data warehouse through the connectivity that OnApproach has. Most of those industry data sources are already connected into the data warehouse.
Okay, great. So are there any how does someone who's interested in this get a chance to look at it? Are there any ways to do a demo, or how does the demo work?
Yeah, well, obviously we can do one-to-one webinars or discussions, but we also have a demo system available in Azure in the cloud, and more than happy to make demo accounts available to people. So this is a full working financial and banking performance copy of depersonalized test data from a bank and from a credit union, sorry. And so yeah, prospective clients can ask us for a login. You can run it on any device in your office, and we're more than happy for you to try the application out. We think that's the best way of seeing the value. Seeing is believing. Try it first, and then we're happy to move at the credit union's pace thereafter.
Okay. Well, that looks. Oh wait. How about budgeting, forecasting, what if scenarios? Anything along those lines?
Yes, we are building a budgeting system right now. So in 2018, we'll be launching that system. That will allow us to capture budget events inside the application, and from that calculate balance sheet, income statement, all the forward ratios. And so we're planning not just to be on the financial reporting side, but also to have an exciting tool that's going to let credit unions manage the budgeting process. So take it away from Excel or other slightly cumbersome legacy systems, put it in something that's more modern, cloud-based, has the workflow engine around it, but at the same time has a great visual interactivity and can work by capturing budget events at high levels, which then push down changes to the GL accounts underneath that through templates. So we already have a program to start testing that in Q1 next year, and we'll be bringing that out to the market as a general release later in 2018.
Great. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions. Graham, I want to thank you very much for your talk today. It was very informative. And I hope everyone else enjoyed today's session. A follow-up email will be sent to field any further questions and have a link to pertinent information about BankBI and OnApproach. I want to thank my colleague, Mark Ports, for handling all the behind-the-scenes work for the webinar. Again, thank you, Graham. And thanks to everyone for your participation in today's presentation. Goodbye.